Kashmir and Ukraine thread.
A thread.
A thread. One, during the partition of India in 1947, most Muslim majority areas went to Pakistan and most Hindu majority ones to India. The princes were given the option of independence, and the king, whose population was mostly Muslims, chose independence.
That was Kashmir, yeah.
That was Kashmir, okay. Two, October 1947, Pakistan's equivalent of Crimean Little Green Men, Afghan tribals, and regular Pakistan army dressed as tribals invaded in response to communal violence, not unlike the burning alive of 50-odd Russians in Odessa. India intervened like NATO in Ukraine. It was. What are you talking about? Like NATO in Ukraine, it was? Is this Yodo?
Okay, so the third point, it continues into third point.
It was. Okay, like NATO, it was an active intervention. India also took the case to the UN, where a sovereign state named Kashmir, whose legal authority the king had... Okay, it wasn't a sovereign state. Kashmir was not a... Okay, so... Kashmir was not a sovereign state that had was considered a nation state by the United Nations at that point. So this is not correct. Okay.
It hadn't been accepted yet.
No, yeah, it was sovereign state under him.
No, it wasn't. Like Ukraine is considered a nation state by the United Nations. Okay, so but Kashmir was not a nation state that could go be like, oh, our independence is being violated. Okay, so that's not the same here.
They had declared though. But just to be clear, yeah, because it was all this hoo-ha at that point, they were just at the state. But you're right. I don't think it was declared an independent state by the UN. It wasn't recognized by the UN. At that point.
People are saying it was a sovereign state. No, it wasn't. It was not a recognized nation state by the United Nations, like Ukraine was. So this is not the same at all, and that's a major difference. Okay, because how could you go and say international standards or rules have been violated when you're not declared a nation state by the United Nations? So that's completely different. Whose legal authority the king had invited in India to help the legal and lawful government fight the 6th January style coup, coupled with an invasion, just like Ukrainians desire to join. So this is, again, a major difference. Like, look at, this is very dishonest, okay? You're having a king, and at the other side, you have Ukrainians. That's another major difference. That was a king. It wasn't the Kashmiris. These are desires of one individual. In fact, in Ukraine, we had the person that was in charge. He was on the Russian side. The people were on the Europe side. The guy in charge was on Russia's side. So if anything, the king would be a representative. Yeah, no, I mean, the king here would not be a representative of the equivalent of the Ukrainian people.
Yeah,
it would be the equivalent of the pro-Russian guy that you had on top in Ukraine, which Ukrainian people revolted against and toppled. So again, that's a dishonest comparison right here.
Okay? But Ukraine was a democracy either way. So yeah.
Yeah. So again, you cannot be like, oh, for Kashmiri people, like, no, for this one dude, for this one king who is not a representative of.
I'm not. Good thing is that Armin is debunking it, because if I did it, they would say once a Pakistani, always a Pakistani. But anyway, carry on.
Then number 4 says NATO Kashmir's lawful and legal. Just like Ukrainians desire to join NATO, Kashmir's look at so dishonest. Just like Ukrainians. And then it says they know that this is such nonsense, because they say it was going to say just like Ukrainians desire to join NATO. It was going to say Kashmir's king, but because it knows how much of a bullshit that sounds like, because it's not
added the word lawful.
It has to dress it up and make it sound more. People like more
legit,
legal, more legit by saying Kashmir's lawful and legal government. Really, is that okay? So if you care about Kashmir's lawful and legal government, are these not the same people who are saying that, oh, the Iranian girls are right to fight against the Iranian regime? Well, technically, if your lawful and legal government is your standard, then you should be against the Iranian women right now uprising. Okay, because the lawful and legal government of Iran is telling them to cover up. If the law and if the legality and lawfulness of a government is your metric, you shouldn't be supporting the Iranian woman. Okay, so that's nonsense as well. Kashmir's lawful and legal government, as determined by the Partition of India Act, chose to join India, but guess what? Guess what the UN did? Supported by the UK and US. Okay, what do you mean supported by the US and UK? UN has members. US and UK are some of its most important members. Like, what are you talking about? Of course, it's going to be what the UN does is going to be somewhat reflected by what the UK and US want. That's how the UN works. Supported by UK and US is determined that the sovereignty of Kashmir was imminently disposable and negotiable. Yeah, because it wasn't yet recognized as a country, so you have to negotiate it. Nobody has decided whether or not Kashmir is an independent nation state or belongs to somewhere else. How else are you going to do it? It's not going to be based on who has the most power. Like, that's the whole point of the UN. It's negotiable because that's where you go to negotiate things. Oh my God, I almost said the R word. What an idiotic thing to say. How else? That's the whole point of the UN, to negotiate things. That the lawful and legal government was to be removed by fiat, and that the fruits of yes, when the people of a place are when a nation state has not yet been established, and we don't know what the people of that area want. They want the right to self-determination. The UN has to come in and say this. We don't know if this regime represents the people there, so we have to figure out what to do. Okay, there's a lot of different elements at play here, so you have to negotiate that. And the most important thing is that the people there, nobody has even given them a referendum to know what they want. The solution to all of this was easy. It was a referendum that you guys missed out on. So government to be removed by fiat, and the fruits. And here's the thing: you're saying the government to be removed. At that point in India, around India and Pakistan, governments were being changed left and right. Like, that was the point where we were deciding who's going to rule over India, who's going to rule over Pakistan, who's going to rule over Bangladesh, who's going to rule over Kashmir. You're acting like this was unprecedented. This was the moment that these things were being decided at that point. Was to be removed by fiat, and that the fruits of an illegal invasion could be. How is this illegal? Illegal by whose standards? Okay. Again, UN's legal standards has not yet recognized Kashmir as a nation state. So this is not illegal by the laws, that they're not violating any of the laws that they have put in place. Could indeed be enjoyed by the invader, subject to a referendum, a real referendum. This is again a stupid comparison to what Putin is doing. What we were doing in Kashmir, what was being asked for in Kashmir, is to actually see what the Kashmiri people want. What Putin is doing in Ukraine, in places that he's invaded, is fake referendums that everybody knows are fake referendums. These are not comparable. God damn it, these are idiotic. Now, these are the same countries opposing Russia's invasion. Yeah, because it was against United Nations international laws. Ukraine's borders were recognized by the United Nations. Putin invaded them, violated international laws. Kashmir was not recognized as an independent nation state by the United Nations. So no laws have been violated there. Invasion could be okay. So government was to be removed. I read that part. Now
I think we got the point.
Countries. Yeah, we got the
point. I reckon you got the point. I think it's too long. I reckon you got the point. I reckon you deconstructed it really well. So
okay.
Again, I don't know about Abhijit's full position, and that obviously he's an Indian, so obviously he's a pro-Kashmir, Kashmir being a part. By the way, just to get that straight, that I also think that Kashmir is a part of India now. I think people need to move on, get this Islam out of it, and it should be a struggle for the rights of Kashmiri people, not necessarily for separation. Just the same way I don't support any Balochistan separation movement or anything. Just saying that. But the point here, when people try to be over smart, when they try to create these false equivalences, even though people accuse me of false equivalences. But this is a false equivalence. Comparing Crimea just because it's a hot topic with your Kashmir and score some brownie points. And luckily, I didn't deconstruct it. Armin did it. So, what more is to
Okay,
say?
so I'll have arguments now. So the first point is, if the Kashmir as nation doesn't exist, and India, or if we disassume the authority of the king, so the part India invaded belongs to India, right?
No, but then you could argue that a part Pakistan invaded belongs to Pakistan.
Yeah, it's fine.
No, but it's not fine though. No, but it's not fine. But neither party recognizes the other side's claim. India also calls it Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Pakistan calls it Indian-occupied Kashmir, and it's supposed to be disputed territory at the UN.
If you have a disputed territory,
there was no referendum for India.
If you have a disputed territory and the countries cannot seem to figure out what to do with that area, the best thing United Nations can push for is to figure out what the people want in that area. The people have the right to decide who are they governed by. That's the best thing to push for. I don't understand what the resistance.
Didn't India do that?
No, they haven't.
India stopped the referendum up until recently. They even removed that from the constitution. They went against it.
No. Didn't India ask for referendum to United Nations?
Well, they did initially, but they never. And I understand that you can't blame India entirely for it because there's some other conditions of that as well. Like you need to demilitarize the zone, you need to rehabilitate the people who were meant to be there, like Kashmiri Pandits and all that. I know it's fucking complicated. This is why I think it is an unachievable solution now.
You're shifting your claim here, okay? We're not. You're acting like we're saying this was India's fault, and you're like, well, it wasn't India's fault, okay? Your claim was original, like the first thing that you put in front of us was whether or not the international world did the right thing when it comes to not recognizing that one king's claim over which side they're supposed to belong. So we were
we dropped out. Yeah.
So we were
back. Yeah.
So we were addressing that claim, and we were bringing up our arguments for it, and then
hello, I can't hear you.
Well, that's your problem.
You need to go back and come back in again.
Yeah, no, he can't hear us. So that was the point.
Okay, I can't hear you.
Oh my God. Let me finish my point. Did he say he can or he can't?
Yeah, he said he can hear you. So yeah, say that. Well, what did he initially start with, and what did you respond?
You're talking about what the United Nations was doing, and we were addressing that. And then while we're addressing that, halfway through the argument, we were like, "Well, didn't India do this? Didn't India do that?" We weren't discussing whether India did the right thing or did the wrong thing. We were discussing whether the international. That's a very sneaky move, by the way. Like, oh well, India asked for a referendum. Like, who's talking about whether right now? Okay, when we were talking about what India is doing right or wrong, we're talking about now. Like now, when they removed the option of referendum, which we think it was a bad move. Okay, I think the option of referendum should still be on the table. Okay, but now you say like, didn't India do this? As if we're making a claim about whether India putting a referendum was a bad move or not back then. Can you stick to one argument before you move to something else? You put this tweet in front of me, and then halfway through it, you switch to another argument.
Okay, let's do argument one by one. So you were arguing that the king has no authority and the state of Kashmir wasn't.
No. Okay, Oxymoron, I can argue with you if you're not listening. Okay, you are arguing that this is comparable to Crimea situation. Okay,
yeah.
The only point that we're making is that it's not. There are massive differences. That's the point we're making, and you're like you keep jumping from one argument to another. That's the point that we're making. There's some very significant differences. Yeah,
the premise, Oxymoron. The point here is this is a very bad analogy because if you're comparing a democracy, internationally recognized part of Ukraine, Crimea, okay, what Armin is saying, which is actually true, Kashmir was not. And internationally, it wasn't even an independent state. It wasn't even recognized. It wasn't recognized by the UN either as an independent state or as a part of India or as a part of Pakistan. It wasn't. It was a free for all at that point. And this is why Pakistan sent you. The only comparison you could say is Pakistan's green men. Yes, that's the only comparison you can find. But comparing Kashmir with Ukraine, that's a bad analogy. That's
okay.
That's the argument.
So India doesn't exist. There was transfer of power from British government to the state of India and Pakistan, or the other king who had a dependent authority to decide what belongs to India or what doesn't belong to India,
belongs
or
to-
whatever
Yeah.
the third state might be. So
So he went. Correct me if I'm wrong. So initially he said these princely states they could decide their own future, and he decided to be independent, right? And Pakistan said, "Let me send my green oxymoron."
I'm gonna mute you, Oxymoron, because you have a lot of background noise
Static
in
noise.
from your
So Pakistan sent the little green men into Kashmir, and they said, "Screw you!" And then the prince got scared, and he said, "Whoa, I'm gonna be destroyed by these people." So he asked India to come to my rescue, and India said, "Well, I would only come if you, if you join India, the Union of India, under those conditions." And that's it. And that's what happened. Okay, all of this is happening, but it was not formally recognized by the UN at that point. You know, when we call international law. So it wasn't actually. I don't think it was recognized at that point that a king can. I think it was probably done by Britain. It was authorized by Britain as part of the division rule, but I don't think it was a part of the international law at that point. The UN was only 2 years old.
Oxymoron, we already went over 2 hours, so make your final point.
Oh, so I was arguing about the legitimacy of India and Pakistan as such, because India and Pakistan as such don't really exist beyond the setup of the British colonial empire. So all authority
What do you
of
mean?
India,
India and Pakistan do exist. They're recognized as nation states by the United Nations.
but through British colonial empire, there was transfer of power.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. They exist.
Yeah,
We
but
have
so
international
the
laws.
the condition of existence of nation is one nation has to exist to recognize the other. That's the only condition.
No. The condition right now for a nation state is for it to be recognized as a nation state by international law, which they are. Both of them are.
Yeah, so the law says that if a country recognizes the other country as independent nation, it is independent nation.
What?
No,
That's the
it
law.
needs to be done by the UN. So it's like,
What?
for example, Afghanistan.
No,
for example, Afghanistan. Yeah, nobody recognized the Taliban government. So Afghanistan is a lawless country. I mean, for a country to be recognized, you need to have diplomatic relationships with them, and you need to have established some sort of trade routes or whatnot with them. For example, right now with Afghanistan, nobody recognizes that. You could say Afghanistan exists, but it doesn't really exist for the whole world. It doesn't exist.
No, Afghanistan exists. The government is not recognized, but the country is recognized as a nation state official. Yeah.
So, for example, if somebody went in and like if somebody invaded the Taliban, the world would not say, "Oh, the sovereign nation of Afghanistan has been invaded." This is what I'm assuming. Yeah, you reckon that?
No, you are invading a nation.
But nobody recognized the Taliban.
Yeah, the government is not recognized, but the nation state is.
The nation is recognized.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
but the country will not become a country will not be independent just because another nation state does not recognize it. That's not how international law.
United States criteria to recognize the
United States. We're talking international law.
No. That is the United Nations criteria. If the country recognizes other country, it's kind of independent country.
What do you mean? Like, for example, if one country A, all of a sudden country B comes and says, "I don't recognize you," all of a sudden it becomes not a nation state? That's not true. I know that.
No, the criteria is even a single country, which is signatory of United Nations, recognizes the other country as independent sovereign nation. It is a sovereign nation. That is the criteria by UN to recognize a nation state. So tomorrow, if Canada decides that Khalistan is legitimate state, it becomes a legitimate state. According to UN standards.
No. You need a lot more than that.
That's pretty stupid.
You need a lot more than that. Can you send me a reference for that?
Yeah, I'll send you. Right now I can't, but
I hope it's not like that because that's pretty stupid.
That's that's not how it works.
So my question would be, you might be right because I heard.
No, that's not how it works because if a lot of countries would like to see a whole bunch of other countries not be internationally recognized as a nation state, and if it was that easy,
UN will not recognize it. For example, if Pakistan creates a Khalistani embassy in Lahore or in Islamabad, let's just say Pakistan does it, I don't think the UN will recognize it.
No, like, do you think like Pakistan can, for example, make France not a nation state just because they come and challenge the
No,
existence
no,
of
but the
France?
other countries recognize France as legitimate nation.
So okay, so you're saying you need like at least one.
Just
Okay,
one, yeah.
So,
no,
this is what I'm saying. So
that's
if
not
you,
true. That's not true. That's not true because that's first of all. So challenging a country as a nation state by one country, that doesn't make them not a nation state, and recognizing them as a nation state by one country does not make him a nation state. Because if that was so, Palestine would already be a nation state right now. Okay, Iran recognizes Palestine and could have just made Palestine a nation state by recognizing it as a nation state. So that's
I
also
think it is a nation state.
no, it's not a nation
no,
state.
no, that's
Palestine
all.
is not
That's
a
all
nation state.
dispute.
Oh my
Two-state
God!
solution. Two-state solution. That's
Okay,
all.
guys, dismiss.
Yeah.
If you're saying that you have to, people have to dismiss everything you said so far. Then
I'll show
Palestine is
love
not.
sometime.
Palestine is not recognized as a nation state. How could you say that by United Nations? Are you serious? Okay,
That's the criteria by United Nations.
It's
You
wrong.
can be
Oxymoron,
Atheist
you're wrong.
Republic
can
could be
you
nation
stop?
state if
Oh my
United
God.
Nations recognize
no.
some country
Okay,
recognizes
guys,
Atheist Republic.
Okay. We have already went over time, and you're spreading. Next time, if you want to make claims like this, send me like a link or something beforehand.
I
so that
didn't
we have.
go. I didn't think it went there.
So Tibet. So here's this guy saying, yeah. So somebody said, oh, Armin, what happened to Tibet then, Armin? So well, I just looked it up. So
There you go.
Tibet.
Well,
Tibet.
Well, that's actually proves my point.
Yeah. Tibet is internationally recognized as part of China.
Yeah.
Because
Up until
no-
1950. Yeah, officially.
Officially recognized by the United States as part of China.
Yes. Part
If
of
some
China.
country recognizes
Yes.
it as legitimate state, it becomes a
No,
legitimate state.
oxymoron. Okay, I'm gonna put you down anymore because you're oxymoron. You're down. But I already told you that this is a stupid standard because if that was the case, Palestine would already be a country. Iran could recognize Palestine as a nation state, and it would be a nation state. It's not. That's not how any of this works. Anyways, I already clarified that multiple times. I keep insisting. Next time when you come with some references, so like, and send it to me beforehand so we could like check it before you, because I don't want this to be like a confusing show where we're like spreading
Yeah, I don't even know much about this. Anyway, it's just
because and also if you say that and we don't have anything to back it up, and maybe on air we can like challenge it. Some people could say in the audience like, "Oh, this could be true," and it could be a complete nonsense. So that would be irresponsible. Even after I clarified 3 times, it keeps on repeating the claim. That's not how this works. You can't just make something true because you repeated it. To have your questions answered on the next live stream, become my patron today. You can do so with as little as $1 a month. Link in the description below.